Angela, it's so amazing that you're here. I still can't believe it. I could sit here just staring at you. When we met first, I think it was in a Soho house, we had breakfast, and I told you from our conference, I said, oh, when you're in Berlin, you have to come to a conference, you have to be on stage. And you said, yeah, call me, I'll be there. And I thought, okay, it's always different saying, yes, I'll be there. And
actually, I said, give me any occasion to come to Berlin, and I come. That was the question.
And
but
you did.
I didn't know that I would have been on a week of vacation down in Puglia, so I had to take a plane this morning at 5 o'clock to be with my children. But anyway, as I promised, so it's a very short trip to Berlin.
If everybody would be so reliable, so honest, and so open like you, I think the world would be a better place. And now Berlin is a better place because you are here. But
what you said? I missed it. I didn't get it. Sorry.
Angela, but you're not just here for fun, but for a reason. When we met earlier this year, you were shocked about the elections in the USA when Trump was elected and said to me, well, I'm looking for a way to support the Women's March on Washington and to support women's rights now. And now we'll look at a short movie that shows what you actually did.
all of us will be in another place. So I would like to say something before we part. I feel the need to recognize that in a time of uncertainty, there is a bond between us that can keep us strong and safe. The bond that unites those that respect all human rights. Please join me and my family on this catwalk, and let's show the world that the fashion community is united and fearless. Thank you.
Good. I'm not used to watch myself. Sorry. Sorry, but I get emotional. I never used to watch back. Okay.
Angela,
So?
how did you decide to engage yourself in politics, to do this message?
I just haven't, I never thought about the fact that I was engaging in politics. I've always engaged myself in human rights, and I always engaged myself in what I thought it was right, and I'm like, I'm always been a fighter. And so it was just very simple when the day I saw, that was the 21st of January, and when I started seeing on internet all the images, because on the Italian TV and on Italian newspaper there weren't many images. You didn't know exactly what was happening, not only in Washington, but all over the world, basically. And I saw this mess of people, and I started seeing on Instagram a lot of friends that were there, that were here, that were there. I said, my God, I wanted to be there. Me too, I wanted to be there. I wanted to be part of this. And then I was seeing those pink hats, and I realized how genius it was, that symbol. I think it is the fastest, immediate symbol that happened now, that made a sign on images. It never happened. Probably communication has never been like today. And so I started feeling I have to do something. What can I do? And in fact, I realized that I'm a knitter. So I was part of this project, basically. And I said, okay, the first thought was, if I'm able to produce between now and, because I had like exactly 4 weeks, more or less, if I can produce 1,500 beret, because that's what was needed to give out at the show. I'm going to give out to every single person at the show a pink pussy hat, just so. And it was growing while I was preparing the show, the end of the show. Every day I had a part of my head that was like, how can it become? What can I do? And then, of course, after 2 weeks, I said, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm doing a show. I need to do my show. So the things needed to be, in a way, separate. So how to... it was on a daily basis growing, and then I invited the designer, because I invited all the other designers, which actually they all accepted very happily. And the one, but I did it last minute, so the one who couldn't be there really wrote me words that I was really very touched. And of course, on the last 10 days, I called up a couple of friends in journalism in the business, and I'm gonna do that. What do you think? And I've been really reassured, and they're touched too. And they said, if it's coming from you, no doubt, no one. So this also reassured me a lot, and I was really touched. And okay, and then I went and I involved the family, and then I involved everybody, and it happened. And then I involved the models also.
And what happens afterwards, after the show?
What happened after the show? Nothing. That there was a very positive reaction, because then I had like nothing. The fact that because you could see it during those days, the New York show started, and then London, you could see that there were movement, but I realized there was not really something that was involving everybody. And I wanted to have a place where everybody felt that it was part, because I felt that the fashion community, we are all on the same points. There's no doubt, right? So everybody was on the same, and I wanted really to give a point.
Why is that more and more designers now take political stance? What changed?
Political sides. It's just... but fashion, it's always been like a filter of the moment. You know, sometimes they said, can fashion change politics? No, it's always the street that change fashion for me. So, and in fact, those pink beret are the most fashionable items of the last few months, and they will still go on. So I think fashion is what people wear, right? So, and it comes from down to up. And the political statement, fashion has more and more today a strong voice. So that moment, you know, like me, I knew that in that moment I had a very strong attention. So I had to use that moment where I had all the spots on. But what you don't know is that I don't have rehearsal, I don't have things, so I had to think about all the how to make it fit. You might know that the press leave right after the music stops, so I had to come out. I mean, it was all on my head. Also like how it had to happen, and so where was I? I'm lost.
So no, you're the creative head of Missoni for 20 years now. No? That's a long, long time in fashion. No?
Yeah.
How did the role of fashion in society change during that time, from your position, seen from your position?
It changed. Okay, so there are no more trends since year 2000, more or less. We can define every single decade of the past century with a sketch, and we will not be able to define the last 20 years by a sketch or two sketches, right? So how did it change? It changed the globalization, big company, merchandising, marketing, product. But I think we are at the moment that we are going to slow in a way that we're going to a more reasonable, how do you say in English? Forgive me, English is not my first language.
For me too. Nightmare.
How do you responsible buying at whatever price, at whatever thing, people start to want to know how something is made, what are the value of the brand. So they start to understand that if they already have 45 pair of shoes, more or less, they will find the one that will go with that look in that moment. So I will think that will go towards more responsible buying.
And you mentioned the strong and loud voice of fashion it has today. Do you think that fashion can play a positive role in reshaping and modernizing society, perhaps like a party does or media does?
The media, all the big fashion houses are becoming media player because we are producing content and content every day. So you better start producing clothing, maybe, or helping other company in producing contest, because that's what we are. So we are communicator. I do spend today like at least 35% of my time on communication on a single day, and so reshaping the world. It's always the world that reshape fashion, but of course roles are. Fashion has a stronger voice in communication today, so yes, it can help. It's just a way of saying, a point of view that can help. Yeah.
As not everybody in this room might know, Missoni is a fashion house who is led now for many, many years by women. Huh? I think.
Yeah.
And perhaps that's why you are so successful. But how did that come?
I don't know, but between my mother and my father, the founder, of course, of Missoni almost 64 years ago, my mother has always been the fashion force, the fashion passion. And my father was an artist, and he was doing his... he always like laughing, he was saying, he was at the service of my mom. And also when I took over, he said to me, I'm at your service. If you need, you know what I'm good at, so I can work for you and your things. But fashion, it was always in the women. And even with my brother, were not into fashion. And at the moment, none of the children, none of the boys, is passionate about fashion. And fashion goes through the girls. I don't know. It's maybe, I cannot tell. I cannot tell why those genes in fashion are...
And once you told me that even the older generations of the Missonis, where a woman couldn't lead a company, it were the women who were the secret bosses.
You're talking about old generation
You
of my mom's
yes.
side, on my mother's side, not
Yes.
Missoni. On my mother's side, yes, actually, I'm I will be the 1, 2, 3, 4 generation, yes, and Margarita, the 5th generation of women, of working women, and of working women leader and in their company, because already my great-grandmother and my grandmother were working next to their husband with very important role, but always hiding in the back of their husband, right? And my mom also tried to hide in the back of my father, but luckily or not, my father didn't have any problem of ego. He had a nice ego, but he was happy to share it with the one of my mother, and also he didn't speak good English, so my mom was always ahead on the international platform. Yes, so I always knew I would have worked. That was an obvious thing for me. I never even doubted that I wasn't gonna work. So.
And is it a typical Italian thing with the secret female boss?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Especially if you think, of course, my great-grandmother, we go back to 1910 or 12 or... so, no, it was kind of... it's kind of unique to hear that you are on a 4th generation of women, of working women leader in companies. Yeah.
And do you think that female leadership is different? Do you think that female leadership is different from male leadership?
Yes, as women are different from men. Like it's a basic, it's a basic thing. No, it's okay. I'm for equality. Okay, we want the same rights, but we are different. We know that, right? And it's a nature. We are different by nature, and the fact of being. I assume it maybe, I think, and seeing myself, I know that I'm taking care naturally. I'm taking care, of course, of my children. I'm taking care of my mother. I'm taking care of my brother. I'm taking care of my nephews. I'm taking care of the people that work with me. And it goes on like that. So there is something which is a way of being, right? Probably, which is more feminine, like a way of creating an environment, creating an atmosphere, creating a good place where to work, creating an atmosphere where everybody is at ease, and I don't know. That's my way, and I think it's kind of a feminine way of doing.
And what do you do to support women in your company? What do you do to support the women in your work in your company?
Like, for instance, the firing a product manager that we just did because he was bad with women.
Okay. Okay, so female leadership also can be very tough. I see.
No, it took me a while.
Please
because
don't fire me.
Sometimes, but.
Many women hesitate and avoid to take a leading role in the company because of private decisions, children, family, and you yourself, you hesitated when your mother wanted to step in the company?
No, I
You
didn't.
wanted to do something else, a chicken farm. Huh?
Okay, so I didn't hesitate because I was a woman and I wanted to raise my. No, I hesitated the fact that I had to enter that company because I wasn't sure. I didn't know. The only thing I was sure is that I was genetically programmed to be a mother, and I really wanted, and it was a priority since my teenage age, and so I had my children young, and then every time I was pregnant was doing different projects, always related to the well-being of my children. I was working in and out in the company, but just to get some pocket money, the one that I could live out. So, and at the third child, I really went to my father and said, you know what, I'm not going to work in this company anymore at all. And he said, why? What would you like to do? Maybe doing jewels, maybe doing a children's line. And then he said, you can work for this. You can have projects on your own on this company. Think about this company like if it's a large umbrella, and you can do project under this umbrella. And there's no need for you to work with every day with your mom. And I haven't had that thought, but of course he could see because he knew my mom. He knew how strong and opinionated my mom. She is very. Always, I'm saying I'm lucky. I was the third child, probably. That's why I was like I could escape, but a very strong personality. Both my parents, by the way. But anyway, and. So I realized, in fact, I had a good relation with my mom, but I never thought about that fact, that what he saw. So I started, in fact, to do a children's line for Missoni. And it's fun to say now, but it's what Margherita is doing now. She's doing a children's line. She has a children. She's doing kind of the same process, right? And so that's what I started. Yeah, that's how I started.
But before you stepped in the company, you worked on a concept for a chicken farm.
Yeah, yes. One of those projects is I open a children playground, like kind of sort of kindergarten, after Margherita was born, and I was pregnant of Francesco with a friend. I developed the project of an organic chicken farm. This was like 32 years ago, so I was very ahead. Yeah, I had. But then he went on the project, and I left the project.
Okay, and when you decided to take the lead of the creative development of Missoni, was everybody in the family happy? Did everybody say yes?
I never decided myself. I was doing my own collection that I started at that point when I realized after the children, after a few projects for Missoni, 4 or 5 years maybe, and I realized, yes, I wanted to work in fashion, and I asked if it was okay for the family that I develop my own line, and so I did my Angela Missoni line for a few seasons, and I started solids, knitwear, shapes, and it was absolutely solid. And I could see that my mom was very because I think I was a sort of late bloomer, so I never show up. So that she was surprised that I was responsible. I was a bad student. I was like many bad things before. So, and a rebel child. I mean, okay. And so she was very surprised. I could see she was looking at my job that I could take care from the beginning till the end, from the project till the show, till the images, till everything, all the packet. And after 2-3 seasons solid like that, I started to add pattern colors and stuff in a slightly way. And after the 5th show, I think, she really came after and she said, you know, have you ever thought of doing the main line? And I said, no, because I've never had that on my mind. That was her job. It was her thing. And she said, I think you should, because what you're doing, it's what I would like Missoni to be today. You have fashion you have to do when you're young, passionate, and you have the strength to fight toward the commercial side of the business. Okay, so she felt trapped in a zigzag cage, I like to say, because they were asking her to repeat and repeat, because commercial is very rare to find commercial oriented, creatively oriented, that push creativity. They only know what they sold yesterday, basically, right?
Yes, I
So,
see.
yeah, and that's what that's how I started. Yeah.
And now you're doing this.
And it wasn't actually. Well, the question was did everybody agree? Not exactly, because because I really had the support of my parents. I always had the support of my parents. Every second, I felt them backing me. But in fact, as the business was doing well, but Missoni at that time, it was a moment when it became more like a classic, and it was doing a very good business in Japan, in Orient, even in the States. But I knew that the clientele was getting older and older. So for me, it was an obvious thing that it needed to refresh. But like my brother didn't get it immediately, and they were asking me, why do you want to change something that we do sell well? And I was like, because I think the client are gonna die, right? So we need to do something and I want to wear those. I want to wear Missoni, and I would like my friends to wear Missoni.
And now you're doing this for 20 years now. No? So what about the next generation, Missoni? What do you wish for your children, for your sons and your daughters?
What I wish for them that they found what I know that I'm very lucky is that I've been given from my parents basically a job which is a fantastic job. If you have passion for it, it's one of the most beautiful job you can do. And even if you have many responsibilities, but it's still fantastic job. So I hope that if they want to do and they want to be part of this job, they'll have that passion, because that passion is the one that doesn't make you feel tired, that you don't feel. You still go on, and you say, how can you go on? You are not yet on the next season. You have already to give out the color of the other one. Sometimes you ask yourself where I am, but then it's enough to see a little thing, and that passion can start again, this engine. So I wish then whatever job they found, that they have passion on it.
And could you give us a short preview? What's the next at Missoni? Will there be a women's march on the runway?
Everything? Sorry?
What will be next at Missoni? What
will be next at Missoni? It will be men and women together in September.
Okay.
Because I need to concentrate my communication, to be more precise, and to keep everything online. And what's next? Many things, but next year it will be 65 years for Missoni, so I hope to have something important also, because I'd love my mom to have a good celebration as we missed the 60th anniversary. And so what's next? I hope to have a very good business plan and to understand exactly what to do in the next years. And that's for the moment.
And
I might have things, but I'm sure I have tons of things that are next.
And is there a tiny, tiny chance that in the not so near future we could buy a Missoni egg from a Missoni chicken farm?
A Missoni egg?
Zigzag egg?
At the moment, my mom always said to me, when we move where basically the Missoni headquarters are, and then my parents, first they build the factory, then they build the house, because they built the factory in a place they would have loved to live and spend the weekend, right? Okay, so already it was a vision of then they built the house, and my mom had her own chicken garden, right? And she always said that having your own chicken garden, it's the most of the luxury you can have. When I finally built my house a few years ago, I realized that the bigger luxury is to have a neighbor that has a chicken garden.
Angela Missoni, thank you so much.